Working in high-end professional cleaning teaches you that perfection is just a very thin layer of paint over rot. People hire us to erase their traces, to restore the shine to luxurious mansions and minimalist apartments. They pay top dollar so we do not ask questions, so we wear our pristine uniforms and use powerful chemicals to wash away any unwanted stains. But what most people do not understand is the psychological toll we pay when we enter these private sanctuaries. When you clean someone's space, you enter their deepest intimacy, the secrets they hide under the rug, behind locked doors, or at the bottom of drawers. Often, what we find is not just dust or accumulated grime, but trauma, obsession, and secrets that refuse to be scrubbed away. 3 specific cases completely redefined what our team considers acceptable boundaries and showed us that some stains are not of this world. The first case happened in a colossal mansion in an upscale neighborhood, one of those properties that looked like they came straight out of architectural magazines. The owner was an extremely polished, polite, and soft-spoken businessman who hired us for a deep clean in a specific room at the back of the house. He claimed the room had been used by a former tenant who suffered from hoarding disorder and that it needed thorough disinfection. When we opened the door to that room, we were greeted by a physical barrier of plastic bags, torn boxes, decaying food, and a suffocating odor that mixed organic rot with cheap candle wax and burnt incense. The air was so thick that even wearing industrial respirator masks, it was difficult to breathe. We began the work mechanically, bagging trash and clearing a path through the room. But we soon realized the clutter inside was not random. The garbage bags and boxes were not just thrown there. They had been deliberately arranged to form a sort of labyrinth that converged toward the center of the room. As we progressed and removed layers of grime, the truth began to reveal itself. In the exact center of the room, hidden by walls of stacked boxes, there was a clean, circular space where the wooden floor had been sanded down to remove the varnish. In this circle, there was an improvised altar made of old wood planks and covered with dozens of melted black candles. Around the candles, small animal bones were arranged in precise geometric patterns, surrounded by dark stains that looked like dried blood. But the detail that froze our team's blood was what we found pinned to the wall right behind the altar. There were dozens of recent photographs of every member of our cleaning crew, taken from different angles, on the street, leaving home, or even getting into the company van. In every single photo, our eyes had been carefully scratched out, with some sharp object and small drops of black wax covered our faces. The offering in the center of the altar was fresh. The ashes of the incense were still warm, meaning someone had been there conducting that ritual just hours before we entered. We realized then that the polite owner did not just want the room cleaned. He wanted us to remove the very curse that had been cast against us. The second case occurred in an old property, a 3-story Victorian mansion that had been recently restored by a young couple of art collectors. They hired us to do the post-construction cleanup of the basement, a vast space of damp stone and low ceilings that had not seen sunlight in decades. The work was going smoothly until we came across a pool of stagnant water forming around an old cast iron drain in the darkest corner of the basement. The water would not drain at all, indicating a severe clog in the underground pipes of the house. One of our most experienced workers took a long, flexible metal snake tool to try and clear the obstruction directly from the pipe. As he inserted the tool and twisted it a few times, he felt resistance and began to pull the snake back, expecting to find leaf debris or construction waste. What came out of the drain, however, was a thick, compact clump of black human hair, completely soaked and emitting an unbearable odor of decaying organic matter. He kept pulling, and more hair began to emerge, yards and yards of dark, wet strands that seemed endless, piling up on the stone floor of the basement. Like a starved creature, the atmosphere in the basement suddenly grew cold, and the sound of dripping water seemed to echo much louder. The cleaner pulled once more, using all his strength, when suddenly the resistance in the pipe increased drastically, as if something on the other end was holding the hair. The metal snake tool was violently jerked downward with superhuman force, slipping from the worker's hands and clattering against the iron grate of the drain. At that exact moment, a wet, bubbling sound, like a desperate gasp for air, echoed from deep within the dark pipe. We shone our high-powered flashlights down the drain and saw that just below the bend of the pipe, the remaining hair began to rapidly retract back into the darkness, pulled by pale, thin fingers that vanished into the narrow pipe. We abandoned the equipment and the basement immediately, and to this day, the owners insist the pipes are clean, though neighbors report scratching noises under the floorboards at night. The third and most disturbing case happened in a modern minimalist penthouse downtown, a luxurious apartment with glass walls and impeccable decor. The client was an extremely reclusive man who suffered from severe social anxiety and almost never left his reinforced panic room, communicating with us only via text messages. Our task was to clean the common areas, the living room, the gourmet kitchen, and the long hallways decorated with contemporary art. During the job, we began to notice a subtle but constant noise coming from inside the walls and the drywall ceiling of the apartment. It was a soft scratching and the sound of something heavy dragging slowly, which we initially attributed to issues in the central air conditioning system. We decided to open one of the metal ventilation grates located high up in a hallway to spray an antibacterial product and clean the dust accumulated in the ducts. Upon removing the grate and pointing the flashlight inside the narrow air duct, the worker found fresh handprints and footprints pressed into the gray dust, covering the metal. The dust had been wiped clean in a continuous trail, indicating that something or someone moved through there on a daily basis. Following the trail with the flashlight beam, the light illuminated about 10 feet away in the duct a pair of wide, unblinking human eyes staring back intensely through the darkness. Below those chaotic eyes, an extremely thin, pale face wore a wide, fixed grin, exposing darkened teeth and gums. The silent observer lay flat on his stomach, squeezed into the tight space of the duct, looking directly into our worker's eyes with an expression of pure, malicious amusement. He raised a long, dust-caked finger to his dry lips, making a shushing gesture before crawling backward with disturbing speed and agility, vanishing into the network of ducts that covered the entire apartment. We realized at that moment that the reclusive client was not locked in his panic room out of fear of the outside world. He was locked inside because he knew his own home belonged to someone else who lived in the shadows above him, watching his every move. These experiences taught us that physical dirt is the least of the problems we can encounter when cleaning people's homes. Some stains on the human soul simply refuse to be washed away with soap and water, and what is hidden behind the walls is often better left untouched.